It's now 2026. It literally just turned 2026 just now. And, it's wild to think about what the past 3 years have just been like for me. Turning 20 in 2023, and then now this year I'll be turning 2023. It's wild to think about what the 20s have brought me. In 2023, I was working at Chick-fil-A. I was, dumb kid. I had no idea what I was doing. Hell, even now, I still don't know what I'm doing. But, even then, I was more lost than I ever was before. Working at Chick-fil-A was definitely an experience that I'll never forget. It taught me so many things. It taught me about myself. It taught me about how to interact with people, how to how to just be a person, you know? While I was working at Chick fil A, I had a lot of things going on with me. Um, the beginning of the year it was good, you know? I was making a decent amount of money for a 20-year-old kid living at his mom's house. You know what I'm saying? It was nothing crazy, but it also, it wasn't bad. Making around like $2,000 a month. That was honestly pretty good. And in August of 2023, I went to New York City for the first time. It was my first time traveling alone, and I decided to go to New York City. My grandpa always told me about New York City growing up, and I've always idolized it. And I had wanted to go for as long as I can remember. So I used one of my Chick fil A paychecks and I bought a ticket. And then I bought an Airbnb and I flew over there. It was incredible. I met one of my best friends at the time. I haven't talked to him in a while, but I hope he's doing well. Jed, if you're watching this, I don't know if you are, but if you are watching this, I hope you're doing good. I hope life's been treating you good the past. I think we haven't spoken in 2 years, maybe, but I hope it's going well. And then just one of my best friends that since high school, since the beginning of high school, since before high school, just you know, one of my guys, a Joey. I met him for the first time when I was in New York. We've been online friends for for a long time, and that was the first time I ever seen him in person. And then a little bit after that, I had started one of the hardest periods of my life. In mid October, I was celebrating my grandpa's birthday, and we had gone out to Canes that day. I remember it like it was yesterday. We got out to Canes that day. We were just chilling. I remember that I had a cast on my finger because earlier that week I had like infected it and bruised it a lot to where like I couldn't use it. Couldn't use it all that well. While I was working at Chick Fil A one night, and I remember that morning I was on no hours of sleep because Spider Man 2 had just come out that day, and I'd played it all night. I had played it all night, and I had to go to the doctor that day to get my finger checked out. So I went there. I was so tired. I almost fell asleep on the drive over there, which would have been bad because it was raining. So trust me, if you guys have a doctor's appointment and you're driving yourself, just do everybody a favor and sleep the night before. But yeah, I had driven there, and they told me that it's not broke. My finger wasn't broken. It was my middle finger on my left hand. So my finger wasn't broken, but it was infected and it was bruised, and you wouldn't be able to lift anything over 20 pounds. We'd have to put a cast on it. So they put a cast on it. And then I went home and they gave me the paperwork for my job to let them know, that I wouldn't be able to work in the kitchen at all. And yeah. And then I went to see my grandparents later that day. Again, we gone to see Canes, and then on the way back, a heated conversation had happened between my brother and my grandparents. And it lasted all the way to their house. Just so you guys know, for you know context purposes, my brother gets angry really easily. He always has. So he had gotten pretty heated, and I didn't know what to do. I'm be honest. I didn't want any part of it. I was kind of out of it. And he had asked me for my phone to look up a video, and I just straight up told him no. Cause again, I didn't want to be a part of that at all. So, he had proceeded to curse me out, saying, "Just give me the fucking phone," But I don't want to. And my grandparents, they were just like, "Hey, don't talk to him like that," And then they try to end the argument right then and there, and said, "Yeah, I don't want to." My grandpa said, "I don't want to talk about it no more. Let's just drop it." And my brother wouldn't drop it, and then my grandpa got really, really mad, and had been the most mad I'd ever seen in my whole life. I hope to God I never see him that mad again. And then my grandma got mad because my grandpa was mad, and things were thrown. My grandpa told us to get the hell out of his house, and that's when my brother had, I guess got some sense knocked into him, and he had started apologizing, all this and that, and then I had just tried to escort him out the door to say, let's go home. You know, it's not worth anything to stay right now. Let's just go home. And so we went, and then on the way home, we had started talking about it, and he had said that it's just because he and my grandpa couldn't really connect on anything, so he was trying to do something there, I guess, and that he had always felt left out or this, that, and the third. And then I had expressed some of my feelings to him about what I felt, but it didn't feel like I was going through it. It felt like I was getting ignored, that, that whatever I went through wasn't as bad as him. And, that made me upset. And then when we got home, I had gotten out of his car and I had gotten straight into mine. I turned it on and I sped out the driveway. I sped down the street. I looked down and I realized I had no gas. My my gas light was on. So I went to the gas station that was right up the road, and I started filling up, and I started to feel my chest tighten, and I started to feel like it was hard to breathe. So I texted my friend Joey. I texted Joey that something had happened and that if he was able to talk. And he said, I can for a little bit. And at this point, at the time he answered that, he could for a little bit. I had filled up my car, I had got into it, and the the feeling was getting worse. Like, I was starting to really, my chest was feeling really tight. I couldn't breathe. But I was driving. And I was texting him while I was driving. Again, don't do this. Don't text and drive. But I was texting him, and I said I don't know what to do. Something happened. It's getting hard to breathe. And then he immediately just called me. He called me right then and there. And told me, he said, I don't care what you're doing. I don't care where you are. Pull over right now. And I was right next to the post office near me. And I pulled in the parking lot. And I was just in a full blown panic attack at that point. And I didn't realize it then, but if I didn't go to that gas station and stop for a second, I would have not texted Joey. I would have just kept driving. And I would have had a panic attack while driving, and I wouldn't have been able to think straight. There's a very good chance that I could have died that day, but I didn't. I didn't die that day. And Joey was a big part of that, and for that, I'll always be grateful. But that had started a series of panic attacks going into the next while. For the rest of that year, I was dealing with panic attacks. And a month earlier, I actually just started talking to this girl. And I had not told her, at that point, I had not told her anything that had happened. I just told her some family stuff happened that day. And I was sorry for not responding. But yeah, that was it. And I never told her at all what had happened that day. I let what happened kind of dictate where I was going and kind of dictate how I interacted with people. I was angrier. I was more confused. And I felt alone. This all culminated onto a Saturday right before New Year's. This is the Saturday right before New Year's. December 30th, because New Year's that year was December 31st, was Sunday, and then New Year's on a Monday. But yeah, it all culminated onto a Saturday where my supervisor, my ops lead, whatever, captain, whatever you want to call him, he had told me to do a simple job. Any other day, most likely I would have just said whatever and just done the job. But that day I was just on edge, and I snapped back at him, and I yelled, and I cursed at him, and, I went home. I was sent home more like it. And then on New Year's Eve, I was stuck in bed. I was just destroyed. I was sick. I had COVID. That's what I had on New Year's Eve. I had COVID. On New Year's Day, COVID, still bedridden. Mondays were my off day, so I didn't have to worry about going into work. But, the next day I had to worry about going into work. And I called in. They said, go to the doctor. I was like, okay. I forgot. I didn't go that day. And the next day, I was like, I'll just go to work today. I can't call off 2 days in a row. So I went to work. And then they said, you go to the doctors? I said, no. So they sent me home to go to the doctors. I went, I got tested positive for COVID. And then, I told them, positive test for COVID. I'm able to return on Saturday. They said, you're good. And a day had passed whenever schedules were posted for the next week. So I went on my phone to check the schedule. I couldn't log in. I was like, that's weird. Guess, I don't know. I'll see later. I'll see, on Sunday if it updates. I thought nothing of it at the time. And then I went into work on Saturday when I was able to. That's when the doctors had said you're able to come into work that day and everything. So I went into work. I clock in, and immediately one of the managers pulled me into the office and said we need to talk. And another one of the managers was there, and he had told me that my services were no longer required there. That's the wordage he used. I was fired. And yeah, I mean, 2024 could not have gone off to a worse start. I had COVID, I got fired from my job, and I was still dealing with panic attacks. So I went home and I just stayed in bed, and I went on drives every now and again. And then on not in December, and then on January 9th, I had gone into my car, driven, and sometimes I like to just record myself, do a little video diary or whatever. And I press record, I started just venting, and then I started venting about this girl that I was talking to at the time that I felt like was ignoring me, but honestly, I don't really know what was happening then. It's in the past at this point. It doesn't really matter anymore, but yeah, I was upset with the way I was being treated, and I recorded a video. And then I sat on that video for a while. And then on a Wednesday or something, she had texted me that one of her friends had gotten into an accident and she wasn't able to help her out. So she had asked me to go help her out. So I did. I went over there. It was like 11 o'clock at night or something. It was freezing outside. And I went over and I helped her out. She only spoke Spanish, so I translated for her. It was freezing. I couldn't really think straight, so I was doing a really bad job. But thankfully, she was still on the phone with her. And then that was it. I dropped her off at her apartment and I drove home. And then on that Saturday or Sunday, I can't remember which day, but I decided I'm going to edit this video just to remember what I was thinking at the time. And so I did. I edited the video, and then I sat on that edited video for a minute. I sat on it for a little while, and then I uploaded it to YouTube unlisted, and then I sent it to her for some reason. I sent it to her, and she was rightfully upset. She was very rightfully upset. The things I said in that video, they were just from somebody who was hurt. That's not an excuse. That's how it was. I was hurt, and I wanted somebody to hurt with me. And so we got into an argument, and the thing she told me it's something I'll never forget. She told me forget me and forget my existence. So, after that, I was depressed. I didn't leave my bed for probably a week or two. I lost like 10 pounds because I wasn't eating. And I didn't know how to go forward. I didn't know how to move on. And that lasted for a long time. It lasted for a couple months. I'm not gonna lie. I was not looking for a job at the time. I didn't feel like it. And then I started applying again after probably a month or two. Started applying to jobs. And then I landed a job at it was a multi-level marketing company. If you know what an MLM is, that's what it was. We were selling Spectrum in stores. And I liked it because it kept my mind off of it for a while. And then on a Friday that I was working, I had seen her aunt. Mind you, her aunt used to work at the Chick-fil-A with us. So she knew me, I knew her. And the look she gave me was like, it was crazy. Like she didn't want to see me, And that hurt, because I feel like we were cool. But maybe she knew what happened between me and, and her. But yeah, that messed me up for the rest of that day. And then that messed me up for a while again. But I was still working. I was still trying to do the best I could. And yeah, it just kept going. And then a couple months while I was working into that job, I met another girl while I was working. She was cute. Um, yeah, we started hanging out after that. Started texting every day. And then, you know, everybody at work knew about this because her power was out one day. So I invited her out to one of our like company like hangouts on Thursdays that we do. It was like right close to her house. So I just picked her up and I brought her out. And, you know, we were chilling. But I just couldn't see this girl as more than a friend. I wasn't ready for anything more than a friend at that point. Still wasn't over this other girl. And, you know, it sucked. At the time, it did. But, you know, that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. And then in June of that year, I had left that job. And I started another job. It's a job I'm currently at. And I kind of don't want to tell it right now, but nobody's going to watch it, but still. If you know, you know. I'll just say that. And yeah, that friendship kind of fizzled out. We don't talk anymore. That's fine. It's whatever. And yeah, that was kind of the end of that. In October, I had went to Myrtle Beach with my friends. We'd been planning this for probably a year now. Probably more than a year, to be honest. Planning this trip to meet up in Myrtle Beach and go. So yeah, we went up. We went to Myrtle Beach. I had a great time. I had a really great time. And, you know, the whole time I was still not over this girl. But yeah, that's kind of how it was. That's how the year ended. And, you know, not over this girl yet. And then January happened of 2025. And I had just kind of had enough of being sad, you know? And just gotten tired of it. Tired of carrying these emotions that I carried for the past year. Past year. And so I decided I was going to write an apology to her and then send it. Whether she read it or not, that was up to her. But, you know, I felt sorry for the way things had turned out. And I wrote her a message. I sent it. And honestly, that was a huge burden lifted off of me. A ton of things that was left unsaid were said. And I never felt better. You know, I felt like my process for healing was really starting. I was really starting to feel like myself again. And then a few weeks later, I was playing this game. And I met this girl. And, you know, it started off real innocent. We're just friends. You know what I'm saying? It was nothing crazy. It was just, you know, we vibed. We really did. That's what it was. We vibed. And then we started talking a lot more. And I had no expectations for this. We were just friends. And I was fine keeping it that way for at the time. But, you know, she had turned into somebody that I started to fall for, can't lie. And you know, we spoke every day. We called every night. It was you know, it was something. There's something there, but I didn't want to assume that she felt the same way. I didn't, because if she didn't and I just assumed it, it'd be really embarrassing. But yeah, there was one big issue with it all. I'm not gonna lie, and that was the fact that she lives in San Diego and I live in Kentucky. So, you know, that was a really big obstacle in the way of anything ever happening. So I just kind of put in the back of my mind, I had said, yeah, it's just not gonna work out. You know, I'm a big person where I like to be near the person that I'm with, you know? I like to be able to see them a lot. I like to be able to hang out with them. And that just wouldn't be possible with her. But if you know anything about me, you know that I'm a big baseball fan. I love baseball. My favorite team's the Mets. You didn't know that. But one of the most beautiful ballparks that I've ever heard, or that people say, is Petco Park in San Diego. And even before I met this girl, I've been wanting to go to San Diego to see the park, watch a game there. And, you know, I've been telling my mom about it for a while. And on my birthday that year, she had said that she was going to help pay for me to go to San Diego. So I told her, yo, I'm spinning your block, you know? Like, what's up? I'm pulling up. And she was like, no way, we gotta, you know, we gotta meet up, we gotta hang out. I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. And so I went there for a week. We saw each other and we hung out. I took her to the game. Had a lot of fun. And then and there, it felt real. You know, I had I had a feeling I never thought I'd ever feel. It was different than whenever I was speaking to the other girl, the Chick-fil-A girl. I'll just refer to Chick-fil-A girl from now on. It was different than whatever I felt with the Chick-fil-A girl. There was an actual connection there. And, you know, it was different. They always say you always know, you know? I feel like I say you know a lot. I gotta get better at that, but they always say when you know, you know. And I felt like I knew, but it was scary. Trust me, it was scary. Hell, I mean, she lives in San Diego. She lives 2,000 miles away from me. How's that ever gonna work? But I decided to tell her how I felt, anyways. And she felt the same way, but we decided to wait. Decided that we wouldn't officially become anything until, like, you know, we had time to process things and actually think about what we were doing. You know, actually, at the time, it was, you know, we'll speak to each other in this, like, lovey-dovey way because, of course, we both like each other, but, you know, it has to stop eventually. We gotta just be friends. We can't do this. You know, it doesn't make sense. It never work. And yeah, we just kind of left it at that. So we didn't make it official. I went home. And mind you, at this point, like me and my friends were trying to come up with vacations to do every year. Right? We're doing a yearly vacation, me and my friends. And so we've been planning our next one at the time, which we were planning to go to Tennessee. But one of my friends that we were planning on going with wasn't able to go. He had some stuff pop up, and you know he needed to save money, so he wasn't able to go. So as a joking thing, I said, "Yo, guys, why don't we just go to San Diego?" You know. And mind you, all my friends at this point knew about her. They had, you know, they had known. So they're like, "I mean, sure, why not?" I was like, "Wait, you guys serious?" I said, "Yeah, let's go." And so we started planning our trip to San Diego. We started looking for Airbnbs, plane tickets, a rental car, and yeah, we decided to make our trip to San Diego. So a few months go by, October rolls around. That's when we plan the trip, and then I'm on a plane again. I'm on a plane to San Diego again, and you know, they had planned for me to like spend a lot of time with her. I'll say that. They're essentially gonna be my wingman, my wingmen, and they were. I was scared. I'm not gonna lie. I was terrified because I didn't want to mess up like I did last time. I didn't want her to hate me, and so yeah, that trip happened. We hung out. I hung out with my friends too. Don't worry. But yeah, it all culminated to a Friday where it was just gonna be me and her. I told them about this that we are planning to watch a movie on Friday and just hang out, me and her, and just talk about things. We were officially gonna have our talk about what we were gonna be. You know, if anything was gonna happen and have to happen on Friday. And it was planned to just be a we can't do this, you know, like we have to stop, we have to just be friends or this and the third. And so we got to talking, and the more I looked at her, the more just I knew I wasn't gonna be able to just be friends with her. I knew it after experiencing the week, after experiencing being with her. I just couldn't go back. I couldn't. And I told her that I told her that if we weren't gonna be anything, we just we just had to stop being friends because I couldn't do that. I couldn't wait for her to maybe someday see the light. That's not fair to me. That's not fair to her. So I told her that, and we just kept talking. And then eventually she was like, or eventually we were just like, "Do you want to try?" And it became a yes. And then we wanted to try it out. We were gonna try to make it work, and it's been 3 months. It's been no, it's been like 2 months, but it'll be 3 months on the 10th, and it's been the best 3 months I could have ever asked for. I can confidently say that I love her. I really do. And yeah, but that's how the last 3 years have gone. There've been some ups and there've been some downs, but at the end of the day, I'm still here. I didn't quit, even if I wanted to. I kept going, kept pushing, and honestly, I'm just glad I did. If I didn't, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't be happy. I wouldn't have what I have. So I just have to thank myself for keep pushing forward, for keeping it going. But I've yapped for long enough. I have. It's been 33 minutes. Yeah, I've yapped for long enough. But thank you guys for watching, and maybe I'll do this every once in a while. Maybe I'll yap for a little bit on YouTube, upload it, catch you guys up on what's going on. But yeah, appreciate you guys for watching. Peace out.